So this is a poem or part of a poem origin story. I come from a place where memory slips as easily as fingers across silk dreadlock head wrap. I come from loblolly pines lining the highway, from train whistles and routine rumbles shaking humid bedroom between evening Junebug songs and a radio tuned to Foxy 107, 104, from gray fox, fox squirrel, flying squirrel, white-tailed deer tail that call this land home. Land green with grasses, with cotton and tobacco fields ancestors would work. With gold and mud, they would swim. With gold and mud, they would barefoot across as much as they would swim in the Noose, a river the Nusiak people once tended the Noose, a river my father learned to swim in his youth as much as what he barely escaped. The Noose, now polluted with decades of hog waste, millions of nitrogen-sick fish sunbathe along shores. From a 40-year-old mother pregnant with after another miscarriage, from neurodivergence and beginnings anew, from the kunk of skateboard wheels over sidewalk cracks on Wilmington nights and afternoons, head bobbing between headlights behind shrubs where air still carries the smell of a coup. I come from an '03 extending beyond 60 seconds at the end of a digital clock when the police pull me over, from two officers' hands over holster as a murder of crows scatter from lampposts like a dark dandelion blown by exhale and summer wish with a gin. I come from a place where making a living has to mean more than fighting for rights, and it was designed to be that way. Like a cypress tree with roots deep in a dark swamp. I come from survival. I come from laughter and long embraces from aunties, from the rustle of a few dollars from a suit pocket into a collection plate as you brought me from a mighty long way, tenderly escapes mouths of alto section of choir, from look to your neighbor and say, neighbor. I said, I want you to say, neighbor. He brought me from a mighty long way. And because of where I'm from, I believe in humanity, and I believe in humanity as much as I believe there are gulls over the ocean and waves below them. When I hear their calls at the beach, even when I'm not looking, even when my eyes are closed, the same way that I believe in each and every one of you. I'm one of the recipients of Yerba Buena Center for the Arts Basic Income Pilot for Artists in San Francisco. Shout out to Isa and Stephanie, who are in the room. And I'll share with you a bit about my time as a part of this program. One of the major criticisms of guaranteed minimum income pilots is people think about what kind of impact could such a small amount of money have on such a limited people over a short amount of time. And one answer is that it's the difference between eventually being able to catch up on rent and stressing over eviction after you lose income. It's the difference between a 4-year-old's desire to live with his father still going on unfulfilled 8 years later, and it finally being fulfilled. It's the difference between being able to afford a cross-country trip, connecting with family one hasn't seen in years, hearing the story of a father selling the shoes from his feet and jacket from his back to feed his 2 younger brothers when his mother was sick, and never learning that you have 2 great uncles who were lynched in trees you would pass on the road to the church you went to as a kid. But those are only from my own personal experiences as a participant in one of the pilots. It has also allowed me the monetary and mental bandwidth to dig through a genealogy of Southern love and violence and find an ancestral history that I never knew existed. The truth about basic income pilots is that each one is just a spark for the fire, and the true number of answers for all of us are infinite. I have been able to research and write, but there are others who will be able to paint, to dance, to sculpt, to film, to build businesses, to climb out of the holes of the economic structures integrated into our society sent us into simply because we had the desire to create for others, to build communities without being born into financial freedom. But if it can be integrated, it can also be disintegrated. And a basic income is but one part of that process. We've witnessed the vulnerabilities in our government's response to our crises. And those vulnerabilities are not limited to a president nor a particular party, but the limitations of the design of our economy and social safety net. It's like trying to carry water for a mile through the desert in cupped hands. Now that we recognize this system doesn't work, that it allows the savage and unnecessary inequalities of poverty to continue, what shall we do? Since this system allows citizens to sleep in lice-covered clothes in our streets, since it allows children to wake to the dawn hungry, since it allows over 44,000 people to die each year from lack of health insurance and leave millions to put off care because of rising healthcare costs. Since it allows all of this while corporate stock prices rise, allowing major shareholders to make millions, including elected officials with inside information who create and advocate for the policy that allow the companies to thrive. What shall we do if reparations aren't paid for this kind of flagrant abuse? If reparations aren't paid for the decades of federally backed, locally mandated policies like redlining or segregation or slavery, which blocked access to generations of wealth accumulation and intrinsically linked class with race? What shall we do? Should we demand it from the politicians currently in place? Should we take their place, dismantle this system, and shape the world we'd like to create? Because it is a choice. It's all of our choices today, tomorrow, and onward. We can learn from the past and we can win in the future. If we choose to support a child tax credit, which eliminates nearly half of child poverty for half of a year, then we can choose to support a child tax credit, which eliminates all of child poverty in perpetuity. Another year isn't enough. 18 months isn't enough. 3 years, 5 years, not enough. We can create support and demand multiple measures, including a basic income to eliminate poverty for all families, for all people of our country. So when we get a universal basic income, and it's inevitable, we will get it, we'll know that this moment wasn't dying coal embers glowing in the night. This moment is more than the smoke of Martin Luther King Jr.'s desire for the potential of the individual to not be wasted, to make space for new forms of work that enhance the social good. This moment is more than ashes of those whose ideas he inherited, piled at the base of a fire pit that the opposition has either assassinated, defamed, or imprisoned to try and extinguish it. This moment has people reading, writing, speaking, organizing, strategizing, demanding the most I've ever seen in my lifetime. And it is through these actions, through demands, through actively dismantling this oppression that there will be change, because there will only be change when we make the choice to be outraged enough and force that change. We make economic security a reality by showing how much support it has, by making it dangerous for any politician to not actively endorse it. President Barack Obama once said that he used to tell his staff that better is good. The truth is that better is not enough. It never has been. This is not the time to settle for incrementalism. The bill for fixing our systems of exclusion is pink and long past due. If being somewhat better is the baseline, how many generations will it take before there are children who don't have to wake up to a slow murder? We can't hope for better. We have to demand what's best. We have to believe that economic security, guaranteed minimum income, universal basic income, it's not radical. It isn't radical for each citizen to have enough to eat or a financial safety net. It isn't radical for each citizen to have the financial freedom to fail, to start a business, or create culture. It isn't radical for each citizen to be able to take care of their family or their community and still feel valued by their society. It isn't radical to know we need more and to demand it. And all of this is a starting point. There are things that we, know that are backed by data that come from just pure intuition. But there's going to be so much more, and it's in that future. Because when we all know it from the first time our 4 or so year old hands draw a circle in the sand, or chalk on a sidewalk, or with a large pencil on paper, that each circle begins with a starting point, and each starting point can become a revolution. Thank you.